wow, that was some piece of work. So was that written around the premise of the idea from the original Horizon programme? The idea there's all different realities, or was that something that came in afterwards?
It was basically a short story by Arthur C. Clarke about two blokes walking up a hill and talking about the fact that in an infinite universe, an infinite number of different things must happen, and you and I must live an infinite number of different lives that can be very, very similar or very, very spread apart. And as they walk up this hill, the conversation continues until at the top they turn a bend, and in their reality there is a gigantic monster that crawls out of the earth and consumes them both. So that was where I got the initial idea from. Change it somewhat.
Well, I like the way you took it. I like the way you took it. Made it not like a spectacular movie version of it, but something that was just real, almost mundane. Just an old man who's just a bit lost. Is that the kind of the idea?
Well, the idea was, I mean, I wanted to do something science fiction based. I wanted to, but I also like the idea of taking people out of their physical realities and sort of achieving some sort of comfort through an imaginative world that they might construct. So I left it quite open as to whether in fact he was travelling through different realities or whether he was dreaming this all as he was writing the notes to this Annie that had died. And I thought that also there might be an idea that he could have died and was travelling to his form of heaven as well. So I wanted to leave it quite open, and the reason why I left it quite mundane, I think, was essentially because the special effects needed to be subtle in order to feel real. I think if I'd have made them made it any more dramatic, made it any more big budget, then it wouldn't really have worked given the amount of money that we had to work with, you know.
And the other two themes that are quite powerful, it's like love and death as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's what I thought was lacking in the original Arthur C. Clarke short story, was the fact that these two guys were talking on a very, very philosophical level about this stuff, and I wanted to try and find out what it meant in terms of emotion. Now, I don't think that I actually succeeded to that great extent. I think that you didn't really invest in the character that much at the beginning because it is quite a complicated story, and there are some quite complicated ideas involved. And because it is a short film, even at 20 minutes, there's a lot of time that you need to invest in creating that world and explaining it to an audience, and therefore the actual character of Jacob, I think, got lost slightly. And if I had my time again, I'd have spent more time on him rather than on the concept of the world itself.
Oh, you mean make him more of a character?
Yeah.
Instead of just...
Well, I mean, his performance was superb, but I think that at the script writing level, I mean, when I was writing the script, I don't think I'm the best script writer, and I think that I missed a little bit of time spent on creating his soul and his urge, as it were.
You can work it, you understand you with him as you're watching the film, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like the way he was quite a normal character, just walking through this kind of craziness, really, all this kind of different realities, and he's just wandering through it.
Yeah.
I think if he was too explained, he'd probably detract from that.
Do you think?
Yeah, well, I like the way he was quite understated, you know. I think there's a lot going on. There'd be too much going on if you had to explain him.
Well, yeah, exactly. So,
and all the million versions of him.
I feel as though maybe it's a longer concept that I tried to squeeze into a shorter script. I think a longer treatment of it would probably be better. I think he could be developed into a feature-ish if I sort of like tried.
Yeah, or a very good TV program.
Yeah, or a series, possibly. I don't know. But
it was like those Arthur C. Clarke films in the 70s, which you're probably too young to remember. Maybe a different reality.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of those. I mean, I'm a big fan of science fiction, so I read an awful lot of that sort of stuff and infinite realities and that sort of thing. Yeah, no, I'm really into that sort of thing.
Well, I like the way you can have science fiction without all the science and fiction. It's just because it's like almost like a real.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I was trying to do. I was trying to place these concepts into the realm of the everyday, so that an ordinary person, sort of like going through these big philosophical events, if you like, how they would experience it, what they would feel, how they would act, and what it would mean to them. Yeah.
The practicality of that, I mean, compared to the films, there's a lot more filming going on there, wasn't there? But you had to, basically, you also had to film a car ferry, which you imagine quite tricky, isn't it? Because you're only going to have one go at that, aren't you?
Yeah, no, it was a bit of a nightmare, that. I mean, we rehearsed an awful lot, but on the day it was really quite pressured because we only had the time to go from here, from Liverpool to the Isle of Man and back. and we had quite a lot to film. And then the main character, Jacob, forgot his lines. So on the way back, we see Liverpool in sight, and 3/4 of the scene yet to film, and it was a pretty horrendous experience, it has to be said.
So it was Ireland, I thought it was Ireland, so Ireland was Ireland was acting as Ireland.
Essentially, I was looking for the cheapest ferry to stand on. And the cheapest ferry to stand on was the one to Isle of Man, so that's the one I took. If I'd have known how long it would take to get the shots I needed, I would have gone to fucking Ireland. Maybe Spain.
So how long did it take to film the whole thing?
It was,
how long were you down the van for then, doing the little village scene? Was that down there?
No, the village scene was shot in the Yorkshire Dales in a place called Dent, which is the most isolated village that you've ever come across. But on that day, it turned out that there was some sort of farm convention. And so every 5 minutes of that damn scene was sort of like interrupted by sheep and cows and small children with nets that happened to want to fish in a very small bowl that was in the middle of the village centre, and basically it was a nightmare.
That's the practicality of filmmaking on a small budget.
Exactly so. Yeah, no, it was very difficult to do.
But the skill of what you've done there to make it look like it wasn't.
Well, the the cinematographers, David Noble did the most of it, and he was superb, and also Mark Barron, who did the scene at the party at the end. I mean, it was pissing it down that day, and it was pissing it down on the moor when he gets out the car, and we're supposed to be depicting a world with two suns. So if you can imagine
that's always going to be impossible in the North Area, isn't it?
But nevertheless, they managed to do it brilliantly. And John Buckley, who did the post-production, managed to create two suns in a black. It was essentially a leaden sky, and it was hailstoning at one point. It was ridiculous. And also Jamie Cole's on the boat. I mean, it was a gale force wind. You couldn't notice that it was a gale force wind from the footage and the sound. I mean, the film was, the production value was as high as it was just because of the people that made it. They were superb.
So as a big science fiction fan like you are, do you think one of the problems with science fiction, I mean, I like science fiction as well, but it doesn't have a lot of emotion, a lot of it, does it? But what you did very well there was put an emotional thing into it.
As a fan of science fiction, I've always sort of like been, I'm aware of its weaknesses and its strengths. I think that one of its weaknesses is that because it focuses so much on the concept of the thing, it forgets about the human involvement. And I think that there's certainly a niche there for films and books and other sort of media of science fiction, fantasy-based films that actually drive it from a the word has escaped me. From a normalised existence, from just through the eyes of an ordinary man. I think that is lacking in science.
And that's what Jacob was.
That was essentially what I was attempting to make Jacob, and I think to a certain degree we succeeded.
I think you did a really great job with that there. You've definitely got potential to go and move on to other things. I mean, are you thinking about doing film or TV?
I'm thinking of doing film. I mean, I think I want to make another short, and then because I want to make some more mistakes and learn from them before I could possibly attempt a feature. But the idea is to make another short in the new year, and then in the summer attempt a feature. So I'm going to go that direction and attempt to get jobs to support me.
Yeah, that's the worst bit. That's a science fiction. So a couple of questions, please.
Mine's not really a question, it's more of a comment. I mean, I worked with you a few years back now on a short film, but a lot of the films we've seen tonight, there seems to be a lot of people who have worked together, and they're all brilliant. So I'd very much say, whatever you're doing, keep doing it because it's working really well. So keep doing what you're doing.
Good. It's very cool, isn't it? Yeah. And a question here, anyone?
Not a single soul.
It doesn't have to just, it's not like a measurement of how good that film is. Okay. No, I think everyone just completely knocked out with it.
Okay, I gotta ask, man, the sound on the ferry, because it looked windy as shit, man. And it sounded fucking gorgeous. So,
yeah.
Come on.
So essentially, the picture.
Don't tell him, he's a rival director.
Basically, David was leaning back and 3 men were supporting him on their backs, and another one was holding his elbows, and that held the camera reasonably steady. And then Jamie was hiding, Jamie was the sound man, was hiding with boom like this, right, behind a very fat person. Who we commandeered for the scene. Random punter. And thus, wind silence was achieved.
So that's what you've got to do, yeah?
Bad person on set.
You sound like an old Hollywood character.
Yeah, I think we got that. It's in the handbook.
Okay, well, thanks a lot. That's good.